right, welcome back. We are live at Turning Point. We are at the Student Action Summit, Tampa Convention Center, Tampa, Florida, and the hits just keep on coming. My dear friend Jason Storms joins us.
Brother,
how are you?
Pleasure to be with you. So yeah,
we were saying before we started here, this interview, this is long overdue. Like we've been like, hey, we need this, hey, we need to do this, hey, we need to do that, and it's like we're finally here, we're able to do it. Jason, you and your family have been fighting for life for a long time, and you've done a lot of great work. And I know, you do your conferences and things like that. I don't think we talk about this topic enough, nor do I think we celebrate the people who are in the trenches fighting the battle, which is one of the reasons we wanted to have you on. So can you tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing and what's happening right now in the fight for life?
Yeah, so I've been involved in this fight for almost 30 years. From the time I became a Christian, my dad led me to Christ at 19 years old, had come out of a wayward teenage years, had a girlfriend that had an abortion. So it was very personal to me. I was that irresponsible, selfish young man who didn't know how to honor and protect women or children. And so getting converted at 19 years old, God began to teach me how to be a man. And a lot of that, of course, was rebuilding my protective instincts as a man, right? As men, so many people say abortion's a woman's issue. And we say, no, abortion is a man's issue. Right? Abortion grew out of the soil of broken masculinity. Abortion can only exist in a culture where men have no protective instincts intact, where men protect women and children, lay their lives down in Christ-like manner for their families. Then abortion is unthinkable. And it certainly would be criminal and was criminal throughout most of this nation's history. And it was actually men that legalized abortion, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't women that foisted abortion on the culture. Right. It was 7 Supreme Court justices, all male, who gave us the Roe versus Wade opinion. And then it was 50 male governors that implemented it into their states. And then every single city where abortion clinics began to come above ground and murder children with impunity, it was male police chiefs, male law enforcement officers, male judges, overwhelmingly male leadership in all these cities that implemented what was previously criminal, mm-hmm. an act of homicide, to now being done in broad daylight with legal protection, the wholesale murder of little children in the womb. And so the impact of that on our culture, I don't think you can overstate the significance of what that bloodshed has done to our nation. The Bible speaks of blood guilt, right. Blood guiltiness, and the defiling of a land through the shedding of innocent blood, the trampling of the poor and the needy, and turning our back on the fatherless and the orphan, right? And this is exactly what these children are going into abortion clinics. They're being betrayed and abandoned by their own mothers, their own fathers, their own families, in what should be the safest haven for life. The mother's womb is now the most hostile and dangerous place for a little developing human being, a little precious child, developing little hands and feet, brain activity, heartbeat, these little precious babies. Mm-hmm. It is now hostile territory. And so abortion is our gross national sin.
Yes.
It is the issue, right? Now it's downstream of other issues. We already experienced a gross secularization as a nation. It was a de-Christianizing of our country, yep. Our educational institutions, the mass factory, godless government education system had already entrenched itself prior to the legalization of abortion. The sexual revolution of the 60s and 50s, unleashed so much more. And so abortion comes downstream of all that. Mm-hmm. But if we're going to reverse engineer this and protect life and establish a culture of life, we have to take this issue head on. We have to talk about the stained consciences of millions of Americans. We have to talk about what's going on in all of our cities. Just a few miles from where we're sitting, babies are being murdered right now here in the city of Tampa Bay. Right. So we're in Florida, and I'm running the White Rose chapter. If you know about the White Rose Resistance, check out the White Rose Resistance. We're helping build their Florida chapter. Seth Gruber and AJ Hurley and other awesome guys, and so needed. We're here in Florida, a pro-life hub. Ron DeSantis is probably the most pro-life governor, one of the most, maybe the strongest governor in the country. Mm-hmm. We have Republican pro-life supermajorities in our legislature here, and yet here in Florida, there's over 50 operating abortion clinics.
Yep.
50,000 babies are scheduled to be murdered this year in pro-life Florida under pro-life leadership. So our pro-life leaders are essentially protecting the abortion industry here in Florida and around our nation. And so here's the reality of where we are, to fast forward to where we are as a nation today. 3 years after the overturning of Roe versus Wade, 7 months into the Trump administration, it is legal for a mother to kill her own child in every single state in America. Thousands of babies are being legally murdered in every single state, including our most conservative states. That's a problem.
Jason, it's a huge problem, and it never gets any easier to hear. Although we are supposed to, like we're called as watchmen, right? I was telling somebody earlier, it's Ezekiel 33:2. We're
Yeah.
held as leaders to a higher standard,
Right.
and our responsibilities, therefore, we have to speak louder on these things. So, Jason, you were talking about how we got here, and the thing that stuck with me is Father's order, right? He has men, he has the husband, then the wife, and then the children. And they've systematically chopped away. So they like you said, they got us as men where we've had to come back
Right.
and reclaim
Right.
our manhood and understand what our responsibility was
Right.
as protectors, because they wanted to get to the women. And Juliana and I write on this all the time, this war on women. They're taking wombs from female cadavers and putting them into men who think they're women with the goal of having a baby. That's a war on women. And now they're saying you don't even need a woman to have a baby.
Absolutely.
Right? So they get the woman, because what they really want is the children. And Satan is like, I'll take them wherever I can get them. If I can kill them in the womb, great. If I can't, then I'm going to basically kill them in life and make them eunuchs and then want to kill themselves.
Yeah. Heartbreaking.
For us, and we do the levels of government, the self-government, right? So self-government, if you govern yourself correctly, proper biblical worldview, good moral compass, then you'll work. Then your family, then the church, and then there's a very small need for civil government.
Right.
To your point, though, about what's happening with these abortion mills around here, the fact that triangle that I just mentioned is turned upside down,
Right. Statism
allows for this thing to happen.
Yeah.
Right. And I know for us, like obviously we've been in this battle and we understand what time it is, but I think what Seth did with 1916 was really important, because I saw more of our friends who were, I'd say, rubes, but they were kind of normies in this. They knew it was happening, they knew it wasn't right, but they didn't really know what to do about it. It felt like he gave some more context to it. What are your thoughts on that, and then your involvement with White Rose? And then after that, I want to get to how we can help you, but I want you to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so it's a huge need to educate the church, right? My people perish for lack of knowledge.
Right.
And so much of what goes on with the abortion industry is done behind closed doors, right? And I mean, really, the reality is this: the emasculation of men in this country is far-reaching. It goes beyond just abortion. Sadly, it extends into our pulpits,
right,
and down into our pews. Pastor Mark Gungor, a famous, popular pastor in Wisconsin, runs very popular marriage seminar. You ever heard of him? Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage. He said this. He said the highest concentration of effeminate men in this country is behind the pulpit.
Huh.
And so that's a pastor speaking to pastors, and as
Wow.
somebody who's been in the pulpit and has served in church leadership for many years, I can attest to the fact that so many of the problems really trace back to cowardice, weakness in our pulpits. Pastors have such a heavy burden on their shoulders, and as you said, leaders are held to a higher standard. And for a man that wants to be a pastor, and then claims a salary, for being a pastor, what a responsibility. And and none of us are perfect. I've had my failures in the ministry. I've had times of need to step out and for renewal, refreshing, burnout, those things. These are real things. It's a difficult job.
Yeah.
You're bearing the burdens of lots of people and getting very little appreciation for it often in return. And it is a challenging job. But one of the essential components, right, of being a faithful pastor is courage.
Yes.
I mean, Jesus was the most confrontational, the most confrontational, controversial. Like, he didn't shy away from saying and doing the hard things.
Yep.
And so many pastors operate on this MO of, Jason, I want to get involved. I'd love to do more, but this is a delicate topic at our church. We've got to deal with it. It's like, Pastor, you have to speak forthrightly on this issue. I mean, we need moral clarity. We need moral backbone. We have abortion. We have the godlessness spreading across our nation. We have a generation of young people that don't know what gender they are, in large part because the church has failed to speak with very clear and persuasive authority on these issues, and instead has chosen to take the path of least resistance, essentially. A theology of cowardice, taking the path of least resistance and just preferring to do what is easy, what is safe. That's not Jesus.
Oof. Ain't that the truth, Jason? It's funny. Julian and I have been on the road quite a bit lately. We were in New York City, and then we spoke in Knoxville at Patriot Church.
Yeah.
Pastor Ken and Valencia Peters.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah, one of the things we started opening with is we're like, you wonder why things look the way they do today because the church abdicated its role of leadership in the culture. And many of you are sitting at tables that Yeshua says you should be flipping.
Yeah.
You talked about him being confrontational with good reason.
Yes.
I just had David Walsh on. We were on Rumble's main channel, and he's talking about energy in the state of Florida, but I said, I have a righteous anger for these jellybacks that don't stand up and won't answer the call. This is no different in my mind, is that I understand you're a pastor and there's a burden. Juliana, we have a lay ministry, and sure, there's stress in life, and we get that, and I appreciate what you said about renewal. We need that. We need to restore. Yeah. But I don't think that the understanding of what's truly needed ever goes away. If you're going to step into that role again, or you're coming back after a break, you know exactly what's going to be required of you. And I have to ask myself this question every day. It's a gut check for me. I was like, oh, what would Jesus do? It's like, no, I ask it in a different way. Am I doing what he would expect me to do? Because he told me in the Beatitudes exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. Am I measuring up to what he would expect, what Father would expect from me as a leader?
Amen.
And a man in this fight, which is why Juliana says all the time, it is hard for her sometimes to sleep because she thinks about the babies.
Amen.
We have a grandson that's 2, and we have him a couple of days a week, and you look at him and you're like, we have pictures of when he's in the womb and everything. It's like, you would actually kill that and be, okay, that's healthcare or that's medical freedom or health freedom for a woman. And I don't mean to go off on it, Jason. I know you hear this a lot, and I know you feel it. It is so frustrating. But here, the good news is that you're in the fight. Many others are in the fight. We're in this fight. And what we told people, we said the same thing about New York City. It's not over. There are people fighting up there. There are believers fighting that battle.
Yeah.
This battle is not over.
No.
And if we stay committed, Father's going to deliver the victory.
Amen.
He just wants to make sure that we understand what's at stake.
Amen.
Okay,
Amen.
I'm off my soapbox,
Good.
Jason. How can people get in touch with you? What's happening? What do you need them to do? How can they support you? Let's go through all this stuff.
Amen. So get in touch with the White Rose Resistance. I would encourage everybody to get on the website, White Rose Resistance. Seth and those guys, get signed up, get connected. We're in the process of helping build out state chapters, local and regional chapters to get training and resources into the hands of God's people and into the church so that they can engage and confront the culture of death. One of the great things about Seth's film 1916 is the real purpose is it was for Christians, it was for churches. Yeah. And the primary screening, the marketing that was done was to get this into churches so that pastors will show this in their church because we want to embolden pastors. There are a lot of pastors out there that want to speak out more, they want to get involved, and a lot of times they don't know what to do, they don't know what's going on. And so much of the pro-life movement is sadly is also kind of weak, right? If you look at the political lobbying of big political lobbying groups, they're pushovers. You go to Washington D.C. and you talk to political pundits, they will say the pro-life political lobby and evangelical Christians in general are like the most easily manipulated, naive pushovers who take crumbs from the master's table. And so we're so easily pacified. And one reason that we've been sort of wandering in the wilderness for 40 years on the abortion issue is because the pro-life movement has been so weak. So, with Seth and White Rose and another organization, we work with Operation Save America.
Yes.
I'm standing in the backs of giants, men that used to be Operation Rescue, men that laid down their lives at the doors of abortion clinics, getting arrested and leading what was the largest peaceful civil disobedience movement in the history of our country, the rescue movement. As Christians just simply saying, babies are being murdered. How is a man supposed to respond to that, right?
Exactly.
So if you look at most pro-life organizations, and even in the church, it's largely women that are leading these ministries, and there's a place for that. We need mothers who provide us, who will come and provide assistance to moms in need, right? So supporting a local crisis pregnancy center is a beautiful thing. Caring for these moms, caring for the brokenhearted. Right? The church, a part of its role is let's be, the hospital for the sick, right, the downtrodden, the needy. But there's a different, there's another aspect, right? the church is multidimensional, and there is a masculine aspect to the church that has been lost in our day. I mean, we talk about Christians, who fought and defended Europe from Islamic jihadists for hundreds of years.
Right.
Christian men that took the sword and went to the battlefield to protect their women and children, lest they be swept away as sex slaves and raped and pillaged under radical jihadists for hundreds of years. I mean, there was a masculine Christianity. When you look back through the history of the church, men stood up and met threats with a fortitude that we just don't see enough of today.
Right.
And so when we talk about abortion, we talk about babies being literally murdered, their body parts being sold in the black market. We talk about a horrific institution like Planned Parenthood that is seducing our children, that is putting their tentacles into every avenue of society to get the heart of your children, and just diabolical. Men, you need to stand up and fight that. Don't allow the women to go and pastors, there needs to be a masculine voice decrying that evil and saying, stand up and fight. Your children's future is at stake. Your children's life is at stake. The lives of children, the weak, the helpless, the vulnerable children of our culture are being seduced and exploited and killed by this wickedness. And where are the men to stand up and confront it? Amen. And so White Rose Resistance, Operation Save America, other great organizations that we partner with and work with, get plugged into a church where there's masculine leadership. If you're a church leader hearing this and you've kind of been waffling on the issue, or you're unsure of how to address it, you want to be compassionate, you don't want to be seen as too harsh, listen, find the proper balance. We need a strong voice of confronting evil. That is love. That's what love demands. We must confront this evil and protect the weak and vulnerable in very tangible ways, and get plugged into a ministry that has a strong masculine voice. There's millions of men out there that don't know where to get connected. They go to church, it's largely female, feminine ministries. They don't know how to get plugged in. They look at pro-life organizations, again, largely it's feminine voices. And again, the feminine voices are beautiful. We need it. We need both male and female. But a lot of men just don't know where and how to get plugged in. And a lot of pastors, I think, don't get the support and encouragement that they need in that realm to find their masculine voice. And so that's a part of what White Rose is trying to do, is to fill that void and to be a masculine voice in the movement that will meet this evil with strength and courage. And so go to White Rose Resistance, join, sign up, get plugged in, get connected to local guys who you can get the training and the resources to get involved in this fight. It's so desperately needed.
Jason Storms, love and appreciate you, brother.
RC, bless
Thank
you so
for
much.
all you do, man.
Keep fighting, brother. Very much appreciate it.
We'll be right back.